African Affairs analyst Isaac Homo is with us in the studio for some insight into what the court outcome, the favourable or the opposite, could mean for the Ivory Coast. Dr. Homo, a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good evening to you, mate.
You know, the argument is that if he's let go and, he goes back to the Ivory Coast, he could cause unrest back home. Is that true? Is that the reason why, his application for acquittal has been met with so much resistance?
Well, the acquittal has been met from resistance from two sources. The first source is the ICC itself. And you can see that the ICC has actually sort of appealed his release. And then again, you find that his acquittal and his return home is being resisted by the state, the government in power, Ouattara. And you can see that they've got a charge against him with Gbagbo, whereby if they get there, they're going to be arrested and charged for crimes against the state. So basically, they do not want him there. But now the whole thing is this, that Gbagbo's case actually collapsed in the ICC. When it collapsed, when the case was going on, they brought in their witnesses, and all those witnesses, under very strong cross-examination, they contradicted themselves. Some of them actually said openly that they were told to say those things. And again, you find that when the trial started, there was a mini trial before then to see if there was a case, that Gbagbo had a case to answer. I mean, Gbagbo, the first time when the prosecution took the case forward, the judges said that there was no case. Gbagbo had no case. And then he was taken back, and then they went back, and then they came in the second time. And the same thing happened. It was on the third time that they said, okay, now there is a case. But now it just shows that the ICC prosecution and the ICC itself had been fishing for a case, fishing for charges. When they actually got them, the case collapsed. But now the prosecution actually says that they want to call the whole trial a mistrial, so the trial starts again. So the institution now, the people who are really on trial, it is the ICC. ICC has been highly politicized, and also you find that it is in consonant with the ones of the French who took Gbagbo there. Gbagbo was not sent there by the Ivory Coast government, it was sent there by the French. And the French actually gave the Campo at that time money, their funds, to start the trial.
So you reckon there is a vendetta against Mr. Gbagbo, or is this perhaps an extension or the continuation of this long-standing narrative that the ICC is targeting African leaders?
Very big one. You see, that's where you find that basically the statement that ICC is a politicized institution, which is there to do a job, to expedite political things, it's actually playing out. And also you find that with the whole fighting which took place in the Ivory Coast, it was not started by Gbagbo's people. And even with an inquiry which was done internally, it's 70% of the atrocities were done by Guamsoro and Ouattara's people. But none of them have been charged. None of them been charged, and they've been given immunity, and they've been, So basically the whole thing is just a political thing with the hand of France. Mm-hmm. France is active in the whole case.
What is France's interest in this case, then?
Well, France's interest in the case, basically, they do not want Gbagbo. In fact, when Gbagbo came, the first thing that he did, when he first came into power, he actually sort of wanted to change the relationship that Ivory Coast had with France, namely in the trading, in the finance, also with establishing a central bank for Ivory Coast, getting out of the CFA franc. You see, with this what do you call them, ex-French colonies, they do not have their own central bank. The whole transactions when it comes to foreign exchange or even trade is being handled from Paris, and Paris maintains the money and just gives about 25%, and they've got to go back and borrow money from the French. There's a lot of, let's call it what it is, there's a lot of nonsense that's taking place. The German paper in the Spiegel actually sort of painted it out as how actually France is ripping off the former colonies.
Now that we see a resetting of the entire legal process, do you think restrictions should be placed on a person who's initially been acquitted?
Well, you see, he's been acquitted, and what they wanted, what the prosecution, Fatou Bensouda, it just shows that our really, she wanted the man to be incarcerated, to taken back to the NICS. That was in, I think, January 2019. But then he was actually sort of released. After the appeal was released, he was set free, not released, set free on condition that they stays in Brussels and they report the police he cannot leave Brussels or The Hague. And those are the conditions. But we find that yesterday when the case started again, the appeal case started, the appeal, the ICC prosecutors, they actually said that he was a flight risk, and so that he should actually be incarcerated. And you should actually understand that right now what is happening in Ivory Coast is that Ivory Coast is preparing itself for elections in October. And Gbagbo said that he wants to go there and take part. I don't think that he's going to go there and take part and vie for the presidency, but I think he's going to organize his party, which is fractured. Yeah, there are 3 sectors, But once he gets there, he will just unite them. And actually, it can actually be a very big threat to Ouattara's people. And Ouattara's 2 terms are finished. As it is, Ouattara was only supposed to be there for just 1 term. But he changed the constitution to be there for 2 terms. Yeah.
Make me understand this, Mr. Homo. Now that he's been acquitted, he's essentially a free man.
He's not acquitted. Yeah, he's acquitted.
He's acquitted. Just that the ICC prosecutors are now calling for, or rather, they are appealing for that acquittal.
They appealed it in January.
But the status quo remains that he is acquitted.
He's acquitted. Yeah, he's acquitted. Now, but that is being appealed. Yeah, so that is being appealed. So then, therefore, what's happening now is a case of the appeal. Yeah, and in
this process, then, can you not go back home and then participate in some political and civil rights?
Well, if it's a court case right here in a national court, so once you're on appeal, you're a free person because that sentence does not hang over your head. But since they say that he's a flight risk, so that's why he's still restricted to Brussels. And in fact, they want to get him into prison. Yeah. And people, I'm sorry to say this, but to say it is just a speculation, but people say that if he gets in there are chances that he may never come out alive. He may be poisoned. They say so. I don't say. But there are very strong cases that say that that's also a possibility.
Well, I have a feeling that he will not get a fair trial. Do you think that he will?
He has never got a fair trial. In fact, even the appeal now, he'll never get a fair trial. Not only that, there is a move actually to remove him from the political scene, just as they removed Charles Taylor. The Charles Taylor case, there's a lot that's still to be heard about that trial. Yeah.
So in terms of some of the African countries who want to exit the ICC, will this not embolden those African countries to push ahead and as well as convince other countries and influence other African countries to exit the ICC?
Yes, it will, because basically there's a lot about the ICC which is not right. To say that there's a case when Britain signed on to the ICC. Yeah, when it signed on to the ICC, the journalists who asked the then foreign minister, the late, I forget his name, does that mean to say that Britain, the British Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, could be taken to The Hague for crimes for actually sort of starting the war in Iraq? Those are war crimes. Yeah. Now, the British Prime Minister said that the ICC has not been set to actually try the likes of the Prime Minister of Britain or the President of the USA. So it's there.
What does that mean, though?
Well, it means that it's
Why are they immune from prosecution?
No, they're immune because it's just that. There's a lot of things which are immune. That's what people are talking about. That's not my statement. That's his statement. And that's what it seems. To say that to say that the Iraq case is a very big case. Yeah. Those were war crimes, and that was a crime.
And the crime in Syria as well.
Yeah, crime in Syria. Let's forget about Syria. That's Iraq. Yeah, and it was a time when the ICC was there, but nobody's taking anything. And there are many issues, even the UN tribunals. Yeah, you find that a case like Charles Taylor was taken there because they say that he aided and abetted a rebel movement. Yeah, but it was far away from him; he could not control it. Yeah, and he did it for profit. But then you find that Saddam Hussein, to say, when he got his nerve gas, that nerve gas was sold by American companies, which had the go-ahead from the American government. And those companies were just CIA France. Yeah, the France of the CIA. And not only that, those Saddam Hussein's people, soldiers were taken to the States, and they're trained in the handling and administering the nerve gas. Yeah? And that nerve gas was sold to Saddam Hussein. So basically, those people who got that nerve gas there, they should also be taken there, because they actually sort of, they got the thing, they sent the thing there for a profit, as Charles Taylor did. Yeah, what we call, they've got a term for it, commission of something, you know. You are party to crime, yeah. They've got a very funny term. Yeah. They could use it for those Americans, but nothing is coming out. The United Nations is quiet about that. Yeah, so basically, when people say that Africans are, they're actually complaining about these tribunals that they're set for them, there's an element of truth in that.
So can the United Nations do anything about those kind of concerns, or can the UN intervene, perhaps in a way, in the mistreatment of, of some African leaders in the ICC?
The UN itself is not a democratic institution. When you talk of the UN, what are you talking about? The Security Council, or are you talking about the General Assembly? The General Assembly has got no powers. All those powers of the ICC, they're in the General Assembly. And who's in the General Assembly? The Big Five. It's the same guys who are actually taking these people and putting them in jail. So basically, the truth about the matter is that the UN itself has got to be overhauled. Not fully, but at least the General Assembly, its powers and also its makeup, it has got to be overhauled.
All right. Dr. Homo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Well, that was African Affairs analyst Isaac Homo joining us in studio.